About? Oh no, he fell back asleep. Woke up from a nap and then he might need coffee. How are you doing, Kentaro?
Doing all right.
Are you ready to take a system agnostic adventure into Pathfinder 2e and to discuss more elements of this Persian-inspired campaign by Iron?
Yeah. Right now I'm actually trying to search because I noticed something in one of the rooms. I was trying to look for something in Pathfinder Second Edition that would equate to that. I'm not having a lot of luck.
Well, we're gonna talk about that because things were kept general, and we're gonna go through room by room. We're gonna take a look at the notes that I made. But first we need Iron.
Iron? Is your mic failing? Because
I heard him briefly.
Noises. Yeah, he made a little noise, but...
No.
Hey, yo.
There we go.
For now. Hold on.
Yep, you've got
mic problems. Okay.
You've got plenty of time, sir. I give us a buffer to work out audio issues in the beginning. You're good.
Maybe part of the problem is I have 2 tabs open.
Sir, I have like 30 tabs open. And programs. Plus OBS and other
Tabs?
stuff.
Depends. Are you talking about in like a web browser or just programs?
Oh, and just Firefox. But Firefox is
Oh,
been...
I've probably got like at least 30 to 50. I mean, I've got like about 10 open just for Pathfinder Second Edition.
It be like that, though.
Okay. All right. I think that's better.
Well, we can hear you clearly now. It's good.
Yes.
All right, so Iron, I asked you to think a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
No, I was just saying that it's always one thing or another. It's either Foundry decides to be slow or
you have
Discord.
You have absolutely no idea, sir. Every time that I start a broadcast or do editing in DaVinci or something else, it's some small technical problem, and then you become this master of trade where you just know how to troubleshoot, solve all these little problems, and then no one sees in the background, like 90% of your work, and it's just, well, at least I appreciate me.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
So, I think last time I asked you for some clear ideas about a starting adventure for your campaign setting to introduce some new players to it. And I referenced this nifty little system agnostic one as a sort of starter to give you some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a chance to look it over, or would you like to just go over it fresh together?
I a little bit of both. I did get a chance to look over it, but I've slept several times since then.
Oh, that's good.
Also, Also, yeah, it's very unusual for me.
Sleeping.
Also, I mean, there are people who may not have read the original adventure, so going over it real quick again
Yeah.
would not hurt.
All right. So this adventure by Christian Blair is free. It's available on Drive-Thru RPG. I referenced it down with a link in the description right next to your social contacts, and I also put the Forgotten Adventures, which is the tile set I'll be using for this one, that will be constructing the entire thing with a budget of $0. And we're basically going to take this little system agnostic adventure, and we're going to be making it into Pathfinder 2e compatible. Oh, one thing Kontaro has already done is he's referenced something that he can't quite find in the system, which is what we're going to do on a case-by-case basis. Now, you mentioned within your campaign setting with the whole theme of Persian mythology, this Snake King, correct? Did he have any artifacts on him?
Oh, absolutely, he would have.
Okay, so maybe this cursed ring is one of those artifacts and not just a ripoff of the One Ring from Tolkien's work. Which is basically it's such a good little starter quest for a campaign, but it's heavily troped in Tolkien mythology, but that's okay. Basically, there's this fortress with a magical ring inside of it that the adventurers need to get. And it gives you a little snippet of story, and sending an adventuring party is basically the last resort of getting it. Because in order to make this ring, a lot of people have died and have basically been remade into this amalgamation of power. I have this little map up here on the screen. This is basically the map that comes with the adventure. We'll be working with this too, but we're going to have it evolve as we start to refine the ideas a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to initiate them into the adventure, there is a small introduction here about how they get hired, and that they are indeed the last-ditch effort. There are a couple things that they can find along the way within the entrance as well, and then we get into the fortress with all the areas in it, and I've taken the liberty of putting that into Foundry, and along with copying it, I've also changed a few things. In particular, the monster entries.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kontaro, you mentioned something that you couldn't quite find within the system.
Yeah.
Which room was that in?
Room 1, even.
Huh?
The watchtower.
Oh, perfect. So, let me go here. This is room 1.
Yep.
I should have put the numbers on here, but I have them on the draft map and the refined map that we'll be looking at in just a moment. But this is a ruined watchtower with an open ceiling. Light and snow come falling into the wet bricks of the floor. Between the ruins, pieces of broken bones and skulls can be found. Among the rubble lies a magical cape that's capable of protection. The player... Wow, we found a syntax error right there.
I didn't even realize it.
That is exactly why...
For a small amount of damages.
This is exactly why DMs do prep, because reading that in session is just like, oh my god, they think I'm having a stroke. No. So I made sure to put down where I found some syntax errors, but we just found another one. I'm just going to put this in parentheses right here. Protecting the players for a small amount of damage. It can be found through an investigation.
That's what I'm having trouble finding an equivalent in 2nd edition.
Okay.
They're short of going into a high-level item, there isn't really anything that protects against damage amongst cloaks.
Okay.
The only exception I could find that's a low level is the brooch of shielding, which is just attaches to a cloak and only protects against magic missile spell.
No problem. So let's take a look at the cloaks that we have available. The first cloak I think people usually get is a coyote cloak, which is basically just item bonus to survival checks and whatnot.
Yeah,
But
you can feed more people if you make critical success when trying to subsist or that sort of thing.
how about we take out this part? A magical cape. I'm going to put this in brackets now, because this doesn't befit the system that we're trying to adapt it to, and you make a very good point. So here we can just put a magical cape that they can find through investigation. And the way we do skill checks in Pathfinder 2e is that we're going to use the level DC chart. And they're going to be actively trying to get to perception. Now, Iron and Kataro, you realize that you can edit the same entry as I can, right? Live? So you can...
Where is it?
Everyone can edit the same document in Foundry now. It's pretty nice.
Oh.
I need to find the document.
Oop, and I think I set myself up.
Ah, here we are. First ring.
I'm gonna have
nice.
I'm gonna have to reload.
That's okay. And the way that we usually make perception rolls in Pathfinder 2e is that we do use blind rolls, because the players don't know whether they succeed or fail unless the DC is announced.
All right. And then just
log back in.
I think a coyote cloak would make sense for someplace up and hidden in the mountains like this. So
there we go. All popped in, drag and dropped. It's unfortunately not looking too pretty right now, but we'll discuss that in another time, how to gussy this up. For now, the text is fine the way it is. All right, so we've been basically given some information about the lighting, the environment, and the condition that the tower is currently in. And one was that it suffered immense damage from the construction of the ring, which seems plausible given all that we've been told so far.
the players, however, in theory, shouldn't know it. At least the characters won't.
They will shortly, because we have handouts and other things for them.
Okay.
So all of this is going to tie together with the narrative that's being written about this fortress and the artifact in question. Are you back in, Iron?
Yep.
Okay. So, one of the things that happens, especially when it comes to putting things from a system agnostic into another system like Pathfinder 2e, is going to be the CR level, or the challenge of what's being thrown at the adventurers. Since this is a low-level adventure, I assume it's 1 to 3. So everything that I'm putting into this is going to be for an APL, or average party level, of 1. And that will go for all the monsters, all the skill checks, things like that.
Right. So, yeah, for a low party level, it's like, since it doesn't say a minimum level, because I guess not all systems will use levels.
Well, that's another thing. That's another good point. Is what if the system is like Iron Sword, and it depends more on the narrative? That's why everything's kept generic in the descriptions. So why don't I do this? Because I made a little draft map that goes along with the actual map. That way we can follow along with the areas a little bit better.
Ah,
yeah,
looks a lot better than than what like the sketch that someone did.
Well, it's you have to be nice because not everyone has artistic abilities. This
Very
isn't
fair.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have been able to do as well as that person did.
Yeah, this is not fantastic either, but I managed to put things on a grid, and I managed to section things out with the lines in order to get a pattern drawn for the actual cobblestone and actually put the walls in. And I have a neat little trick that I learned by doing this. The lines themselves can have outlines on them and still be used as a vector mask with a texture in order to get it even more refined, which I did in this next one. So now I have all the walls uniform, and I still have that contour available in case we want to build the actual walls to prevent lighting from coming through and whatever. And as you can see, if you mouse over the A1s, the A2s, and everything, I've got the little, all the little passages.
What room? Yeah, okay.
So
very nice.
we're set for the most part, and this is a very small adventure. So most things here are going to be self-contained. Now, Iron, how exactly would we adapt this for, say, your particular campaign setting? Like, why would the servitors of the Serpent King be making this ring for him or whatnot, or why does he need this this evil artifact?
Let's see why. Damn, that's a really good question.
Let's delve a little deeper and see what we can find, especially as we explore it on the GM side. Maybe give you some ideas that way.
Yeah, because like off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure because I never even considered like specifics on other artifacts that he might have had.
Okay, well, how about this? How about a more generic question? What is his purpose in the world?
God, it sounds cartoon villainy, but world domination is very much a thing for him.
Okay.
Well, then we have a pretty good reason built into this particular module's fluff is that the reason the adventurers are going after this ring is that its very existence is basically empowering the armies of the people who made it, even though no one's actively using it. It's the reason why the players are being sent to retrieve the ring, is so that they can then their faction can then use it themselves to basically turn the tide.
You know what? I kind of like that. So during its time, during the Age of Dragons, the ring might not have held nearly as much importance, but as time went on, this artifact and others like it became the only connection that he had left to the material plane.
Oh.
So he wants to grab it as a means to say help bring him back into the material plane or something.
Exactly. So this is, I mean, the players and the PC certainly wouldn't know this, but this is probably the first of many.
Oh, I kind of like that. It's sort of an experiment. And that does fit into the theme of what we're going to see in the tower as well as we go deeper into it.
So do we want to go from in increasing numbers and visit each room?
That is up to you guys. I usually start backwards and then go to the front. That's how I prepare, usually as a DM.
I see the end result and then the stuff leading up to it.
Right, because that gives us the best possible chance to run the adventure properly, because we have the goal in mind first, and then we're always working towards it. I do that with adventure paths and modules all the time, especially with Paizo adventure paths. It helped me in Ruby Phoenix because, God help them, they never explained who the Ruby Phoenix was, and the whole adventure path was about her. And there was no little aside saying, like, this is how Jin, this is what she's done. She's an archaeologist. She has a whole dynasty. She's the eternal sorceress. Nope, nothing. You're just going to play in her tournament. Okay.
Wow.
She's just this mysterious figure that's sitting there in the shadows, and you never actually get to interact with her because she doesn't really exist.
That would be a shame, because she's an extremely interesting character that an entire year of Pathfinder Society play was spent exploring into learning who she was. But unfortunately, Pathfinder 2e assumes that you've played everything from Pathfinder 1e, and that is not the case with all the new players that we have coming in. So I had to...
And then I don't even remember that. I think I've played like one, maybe two Pathfinder First Edition games, and I don't think any of them were actually using the modules from Pathfinder.
Oh, man. All right.
So I guess let's start with room 11 then.
Ring Hall. Yes. This is where they have a little puzzle that is not a puzzle. Oh God, I'm having PTSD from Sunday. So there are basically 4 words on each of these pillars after they get into the room. And they can get into the room one of several ways. There's a key in the toilet, I believe. And the other way is to disarm the trap, which will shock them every time they touch them. Gee, what does that remind me of? So this is very good. The way that he's designed this and set them up is that we can put this as a hazard in the system, or we can treat it just as a front-up adventuring challenge that they could spend skill checks. Succeeding several times will overcome it, or they could straight out try and solve it in terms of how it's written in puzzle form. Like right now, if you say the words of power that are written on these particular pillars, they're Latin. And so, as someone who's DM'd as many years as I have, you cannot assume that your players are this clever. So what I've done is I've translated the 4 words from Latin into English, and you can write them backwards from English instead, because that'll probably make more sense to people who have never played a TTRPG.
I can at least say, for my Thursday group, there are at least 2 people who would recognize it as Latin.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a librarian, so I feel like...
Okay, so if you know your group, that's fair. But for me, I run for meatheads. I can't
Plus,
risk it.
you run for several very, very different groups, even if some players are the same among them. The only concern with just having it your 10-minute reset timer is that if, unlike with my group, they actually try and grab it again before the reset timer's up, and they just walk out. Mm-hmm. Or do they have to act, or is there like a shield that or something?
So it's still sealed, even if they set the trap off. But if you mean the pillars themselves, there's nothing stopping them. They can take the ring after that. I'm not going to nitpick because of the way that the system is set up with resets. So if they want to risk danger, yeah, they can try to take it twice in a row. But as you've seen with the example, when a mouse gets shocked trying to take the food, they tend not to take the food out of that bowl anymore. This is like that little controlled experiment. The adventurers will be more cautious if they have they've suffered damage.
Well, it just says that it restrains the influence of the ring. It doesn't say it actually keeps the ring there. So in theory,
Right.
if they set off the trap, they can just grab the ring and walk away.
That is what I said.
Its influence will be suppressed still because they didn't disable the pillars. But
no, once they take it out of the room, that's it. The way that the pillars work, at least from my understanding, is that they suppress the ring when the ring is in that room. Taking the ring out of that room is what activates the final encounter, which brings the huge skeleton to life, which tries to attack them.
all right, because I was thinking about making maybe it a complex hazard so that
Too much. Too much
for level 1.
Because they're going to immediately fight the boss after it.
Fair enough.
So simple hazard is enough. And the whole theme of this dungeon seems to be undead, especially with all the dead mages that we're going to talk about that tried to create this ring.
All right, so I guess now the ring itself has some bonuses when not even being worn, but being basically held by someone, like just in their inventory. It was talking about.
That
Now, granted, that could be when it's not suppressed anymore, but
that I'm very cautious about because for low-level characters to have an artifact and to have it do damage bonuses like that, this was written from the perspective that he was more familiar with 5th edition D&D, and he states that in the excerpt. I would not use that for Pathfinder 2nd edition. I would basically give them like a +1 bonus. I would make it behave as though it were a potency rune or maybe even a striking rune for their weapon.
yeah, like say when they're holding it, it's like +1 plus counts as like both fundamental runes for all weapons they're using, whether they're attaches or not or something.
As long as they attune to the ring, but if you attune to the ring, bad things happen.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough.
But yet there's such a huge difference with a +1 in D&D 5th edition compared to a +1 in Pathfinder 2nd edition, because the +1 basically means a 20% more chance to crit with Pathfinder. Whereas in D&D, that doesn't contribute towards the crit. The crit can only happen on the 20.
Well, yeah, and plus with it being if it also adds in the striking rune, which doubles their damage, which gives them another damage die
Yes.
on hits.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, that'd be quote unquote artifact level for their level, more or less, considering
that's-
it's a huge boost in damage.
That's more than enough power. They don't need anything more than that, and it shows a significant difference. And what they will get is a CR3 challenge immediately afterwards, which is, I believe, severe for their average party level. So that's enough. All right. Number 10, the basement. Since we're going backwards. Now, I put all the elements in here as I was putting things together because this was one of the more important rooms, like the giant skeleton or the candles. The other elements I'll be filling in later because I've basically put as much time into the prep that I felt that the developer put into writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was just like, okay, that's enough. Floor plan's done. That's basically what they gave me in the sketch anyway.
Yeah.
But we can always go back and make things more detailed after we all have a better understanding of it and have gone over it. So this is one of the more interesting rooms that they gave because the beginning rooms, as you're going to see, pale in comparison once you step past the threshold of the actual circular tower. And a couple steps down from the basement, it's a dark and humid area with just a pair of torches illuminating the entire room. So we have another set of light sources. So we're definitely going to put sconces from the tile sets in as well. And there's a stone table with various emblems, devices, and a bloodstained scroll that reads, and this is the perfect opportunity for a visual aid. Don't just read it to the group, give it to the group, because they're going to ask you to type it out anyways. That is something that I've experienced so many times.
I keep running into that problem and it never really clicked until just now.
Oh,
There's also 6 stone coffins standing in the middle of the room.
yeah, that's going to be a little bit harder to fit in. But, oh, I'm echoing again through iron. I'm sorry.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. The 6 coffins, I'll probably shrink down because of how the size of the room is in proportion to the original.
Well, from my understanding is that they're standing upright, just standing there, and then
like the little pillars.
Yeah, that's why there's little squares. That's them standing upright.
Oh, I can do that. I'll just do something from above.
Okay, yeah. God, upright coffins is somehow more terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 empty stone coffins, like standing in 2 rows. It even says that they're standing. So I'd assume that means that they're standing upright as if the person inside is standing.
Well, it's part of an event because there's going to be a lever in the room. If they do use the lever, the coffins are going to drop to the floor, break into pieces, and start melting together into an animated guardian warrior or stone golem. But stone golem is CR8.
Yeah, that'd be a TPK for a low level group, unless he was considering low level as being like 4 to 3 to 6 or something.
No, not for beginners.
Yeah.
The most I can get away with is 3rd, like with a fistful of flowers. Past that, it's just too much for someone to keep track of.
Half damage on regular attacks. Doesn't have active reflexes.
No. The part about reflexes is a generic statement, which is true of most constructs, but there's no reason to make it more powerful than what this already is, because the animated guardian warrior is already pretty tough. And this system also has hardness, which doesn't go away until it's crit or destroyed. So every attack is going to be -6 damage. And that's significant for a low-level party.
Which will probably equate to half damage from regular attacks. Let's see. Slow to move. Notable weakness in its chest, where dim light can be seen emanating from it. If they are precise and hit that weakness, it suffers double damage plus 50% of its max hit points, almost guaranteeing death.
So Pathfinder 2e did do this with Iron Tavia in the most recent Bloodlords thing, where they had a hag have basically a scar that she got from the Magambia, and if the players do notice it and are aware of it, it does do more damage, but I wouldn't say double damage. Or granting a death effect. I would say something along the lines of, oh, well, that's probably an extra damage die.
Right. I mean, that almost sounds like if you're using the actual stone golem, then this is a way to actually kill it in a few hits if you manage to like hit like a couple AC more or something or other.
Well, its AC will go down significantly once you get past the hardness. So most of those mechanics are already baked in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's one of the few actual encounters in this entire thing.
Well, that's something I noticed too. And that's part of the reason why I made notes, particularly in the beginning, to either add something that would actually help the dungeon ecology, or just put in some more skill checks and challenges for them to do, or things for them to notice. Because basically the first 5 rooms are empty with nothing of significance. And I don't like that. I don't agree with that.
Neither do I.
We have an alchemical laboratory where they wanted me to put a ghost against people, and I'm just like,
Ghosts against level 1s who likely aren't going to have any way of magically hitting it unless they're spellcasters?
Right. And that's a big oof. So I used a Wailing Ghost instead, which is only CR2 instead of the CR4 Ghost. It has similar resistances, but if they have a cleric in the party or a spellcaster, like an arcane spellcaster or cult, this will be much, much easier. But instead of 40 HP with like 19 AC, you have AC 17 with HP 15. So this is significantly less challenging.
Yeah, because I understand the whole double damage from any kind of magical weapons or spells, but if it's on first level, again, unless they have some casters or people have some sort of casting ability, they won't have any magical weapons.
Yeah, that's something that, D&D, again, with 5e, doesn't take into account, because you don't even get the magical weapons until a certain level. But still, the adventurers, once they hit 3rd level, become basically super powered with whatever they choose.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of, okay, the CR says this, but I have to put in like 4 additional monsters, otherwise too easy. Thankfully, Pathfinder 2nd Edition doesn't suffer from that problem. Now, I don't have any pre-made alchemy tables or labs within the tile set, so that's something that I have to invest time into actually making for the set piece. And the way that I do that I've done with the map so far, is that I've taken folders and basically put in like the garden, the circular portion, the doors, the candles, the walls themselves, the textures, the vector graphics, and then finally the outline and contours of the walls themselves, so that everything is set up separately and I can move things around as I need to.
Okay.
So again, 90% of the work these players are not going to see, as they're rushing in to kill everything and say like, what's in this room? What's in this room? Nothing's in this room. I got to get out of here. So our job is to make them at least interested in one thing in the room, and that will be the set piece of the alchemy lab in this case. And then the ghost comes from wherever.
Then we've got the Garth/Garden.
Yes. Again, this is one of those things that is very clever of the developer to do, but my players are not as clever.
It go over most players' heads.
Yes.
In fact, I think when I first read it in this thing, I just took it as mean garden instead of Garth. I didn't even notice it said Garth.
Yes, yes. I put that up there. So, usually a garth is a stone vaulted passageway led into a cloister. And it could mean a yard or a garden. In this case, it means a garden, and there is a singular dead tree out there, and it houses a mimic. And a mimic is a staple of every system.
Right.
4 may be a bit much, so thankfully Pathfinder 2e has that little weak tag that we can use to modify it.
Yeah,
And
because it's CR4 normally.
Yep, and this is another good place to use the hazard system.
So, what does the weak tag do? Just lowers its stats?
It does a lot of things. So let's take a look at this. I've put it on the board. I press weak. AC goes down. Max HP goes down. And if you mouse over it, it tells you exactly what the base HP was and what weak did to it. It subtracted 15 HP. And these rules
went down to CR3.
These rules are in the bestiary. They're right at the beginning in order to do the templates for weak and elite.
Interesting.
Yep. Even the skills go down and the saving throws.
Nice.
So basically, this is classic adventure slapstick. You stick your hand into the tree to get treasure. Mimic attaches itself to you. Hilarity ensues. And so far, we have the atmosphere that this was the testing ground and something very, very horrible happened. So we kind of want to build up the atmosphere with either the music or sound effects that basically reflect on what we're doing here and how dangerous this place is, and that a lot of people have died. It mentions bones in several places, so with the set pieces, what I'm going to do is basically on a separate folder, I'm just going to scatter skeletons around or broken pieces of skeletons.
Right. And here we have the ponds that used to, be here feeding off the garden are now poisonous.
Yep.
One character can kill themselves drinking that poison.
Oh.
Actually, I don't think Pathfinder 2nd Edition characters can do that. I think most of them don't have 6 hit points. They usually have a little bit more. So not directly kill themselves, but seriously injure themselves, potentially.
So you bring up a good point. Let's make it a poison from the compendium. And let's make it a fortitude save.
It deals 1d6 poison damage when drank. It can also be used to add a poisonous effect to a common weapon. So
you could basically just rewrite wasp poison, I think. Yeah, giant wasp venom. Oh god, that's item level 7. That won't... God, wasps are terrible. Giant wasp. Giant wasp venom. Yeah, this is good right here. DC 19 fortitude save. That's only a CR2 right there, or CR3.
Okay, that sounds doable for a level 1 party.
All right, so let's rewrite this a little bit. So we take this out. As I misspell poison. Poison pools, if drank, will require a Oh, I forgot how to do the fortitude save thing. Hang on. I will cheat. No, I will not. Hang on. It's much easier to edit and copy than it is to retype all the BS.
I just realized something. The 2d12 damage to any creature, DC 12. I guess it's a very low strength save, so that's ooh, we actually have to change it, make it fort save, because strength saving throw is a that's a 5th edition term where they had a saving
Right.
throw for each thing. So we'd have to make it a fortitude save.
That is
Perhaps
what I
keep it as low, because
that is what
2d12
I just
is pretty powerful for a first level character.
that is what I just did, and he wrote it from the perspective of 5th edition because that's what he knew. That's why we're trying to expose Iron to more systems, because the more systems he looks at, the more generic he's going to keep his campaign so it can be adapted to other things, and we won't run into problems like this. Okay. All right, let's take a look at it now. The poison pools, there's our DC 19. Stage 1 is going to do poison damage. We can probably take away stage 3. We don't want it to be that bad. The maximum rounds will be 3 because we don't want them to die outright.
Well, it sounds like once it goes to stage 2, it's not dealing damage anymore.
Oh, that's what I'm going to fix right now.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So if they do drop down to stage 2, it'll be 2d6 poison damage, but then it will only be 1 round.
All right.
That way, if they get stuck in stage 1, they only suffer it for 2 rounds. There we go.
All right, and Pathfinder second edition Mimic already has a reaction to reaching in to grab. It has its reaction that lets it just
Right.
they can use when it's disguised. So
Object lesson. And it's going to do that the second it's touched. There is no save. And that's
that
something.
makes a strike, which can miss, so it's not just instant damage with a save.
Right, and that's something that newer players into the system get confused with a lot, because they see things happen and they ask for a save that's never prompted, and that's when you get people who will roll without being prompted to roll. And that's something that newer adventures like this is a good place to set down the ground rules, especially with blind rolls.
If there's a save,
else.
I will ask you for it.
No, don't say it like that. Oh my God, don't be passive aggressive. No, just let them know it's just like, I'm not trying to cheat you. You can trust me. If there's a save, I will give it to you. And that's why this is so helpful in Foundry, because you can just prompt them right from chat.
All right, let's see.
A7, the ritual room. This is one of the rooms without any light. So this is another wake-up call for newer adventurers, especially the ones that choose human as their ancestry. But
or
thankfully,
any other non-dark vision ancestry.
But thankfully, most of the kits start with torches, and there's going to be torches in the dungeon itself, including Everbright torch, which I added as treasure.
Oh, that's basically continue flame torch from
Yeah.
like other game. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a very, very common level 1 item that most adventurers should have, even if they don't have a light spell. And again,
Right. Yeah.
another
Sorry.
opportunity for a handout for more visualization. So taking the text from the actual adventure itself and taking 2 seconds to make a horrible graphic, you can actually have a handout to give to people, because that's important. The more they actually see something visually, the more invested that they are. And the symbolism in this room is very, very important, because everything to do with the theme of transformation and the transformation that we've seen with the undead and everything else in this dungeon, the 5-star pentagram that he mentions, that he usually chooses, is also a symbol of transformation. And I believe I have one in the tile set that I can lay down here as well. All right, and for the actual main part with the circle, that's where the ever-burning torch is going to be, and a skeletal soldier. Now, what he's put here within the adventure doesn't make much sense, because he put the skeletal soldier as holding the torch so it could see.
Uh,
Yeah, the undead orc is carrying a torch to let them know where it is.
Game-wise, yes. But it doesn't need the torch.
Right.
So there's no.
I guess the only reason, I guess we could say that if we want to keep with it holding the torch, it's because that's what it was last doing, was using the torch to look around.
No.
And then it died and was resurrected. Still does it. But
we don't need it to hold the torch at all. That's one of the things that we can change. The torch can just be on there on a sconce somewhere, because we know that the skeletal soldier doesn't need it to see. That's one of the things that I didn't understand with what he was trying to do here. Especially since he's holding a bastard sword, and a bastard sword can be used with 2 hands in Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
right. Okay.
And that would mean more damage, so no reason to carry the torch, but it is there.
all right. Okay.
Also, 1 singular skeletal soldier will not be enough for an average party level of 1. You might want to include 2. So,
well, we could use it in the elite one, and then because there's actually something with the boss if they manage to avoid fighting the skeletal soldier.
right, because he's patrolling.
Right. I'm just saying there's a cool little funny snippet if they didn't kill it, and they end up fighting the boss.
It's definitely a nice touch for flavor. It's not something I agree with, but yeah, if the players enjoy it, then yeah.
But it was put in there if they didn't kill the soldier. So
Right, right. There's a lot of things I don't particularly agree with what he did.
I mean, as far as I can tell, most parties, oh, there's an enemy, let's kill it. That's usually what most parties are going to do. Is like, oh, a skeleton running around or an undead creature running around, let's kill it for experience and loot. So the chances of it surviving till the boss battle is like slim to none.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we basically have 5 empty rooms in the beginning. And what I chose to do with what he gave me is that I basically put a bargeist there, because each of the rooms has a clue that there is a carnivore and it's been living here for quite some time. And what I recommended was to put a Bargeist here because they are social, evil, and often disguise themselves as a lesser threat. And it keeps in with the same amount of challenge as the other creatures. It also explains why you find a party of adventurers who didn't quite make it.
Right, in the meat storage. Yeah, because this party is supposedly sent out. They don't know that the second adventuring party sent out.
Wheels are turning. I'm actually thinking about story things.
Yes, that's part of the reason why we're doing this. So it's not too bad overall. And visually, I can do a few things to improve what I've done here. But we need to hear more about the Serpent King and what he actively tries to do in order to control more of the world. If we want to customize it.
Well, there was one part of the mythology that I really, really liked, and it was the basic concept that, you know, good and evil is a choice, etc., etc. But when you make that choice, if you're powerful enough, it can affect everything around you. I think they touched on that in the OSP video about Zayhawk, the Serpent King. I think they did it right at the beginning for all of like 3 sentences, and then they never mentioned it again. For some reason, I really remembered that. So my idea was, as he got more powerful and less moral, it started to spread a sort of corruption everywhere. And the more lands he conquered, the further that corruption spread. Now, thousands of years later, those artifacts have the same effect. So his followers, in order to try to bring him back, have probably been trying to spread that corruption as much as possible.
Okay. What sort of benefit do they get from this?
God, I hate to put this in 5th edition terms, but you know,
That's
warlocks.
that is what we're working with the system agnostic is from the 5th edition bias. So it's not a singular thing. A lot of people have it.
Yeah. Let me try to rephrase. They derive power from Zehak in the same way that clerics derive power from their gods.
Oh, so he's a divine figure.
Yes and no. I'm sure like the the more quote unquote traditional divinity would not call him such, but he essentially probably would have risen to the level of divinity. Evil divinity, for sure.
That's why you were initially starting off with the warlock, because they don't necessarily have to make pacts with gods.
Exactly.
So he's powerful enough to grant power to those who make the pact with him, and that's why these warlocks are helping him. Fair enough.
Yes, but rising to divinity also kind of thwarted his plans a little bit, because I did mention the last time we did this that the gods can't just walk around on Earth like they want. They have to exert influence through people unless, specific things happen.
Okay.
So okay, yeah, that also works because that also makes it better for, I think, system agnostic, because I figure more systems will have a cleric analog than perhaps a warlock analog.
We also have witches in Pathfinder, and they rely on patrons. That would work too.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there's probably more likely that like non-Pathfinder systems will have a cleric type, or you can just be general cultists. I mean, Cult of Cthulhu has cultists for everything. It's just that instead of one of the old ones, it's the Serpent King.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So we worked out one of the fundamental things about this world is that the gods can't directly influence, but the artifact can. So the artifact is either a medium or it's some sort of secondary that can exert influence over people. And whatever it did to transform the people that were creating it or trying to exert its will, ultimately tried to suppress it and sealed it within the tower.
Well, we already have in the module someone who basically woke up and realized, oh crap, this thing is bad, and then tried to it was even in the middle of writing his basically the last thing when it happened. So it's probably a small faction, perhaps not even being able to know that they're there, set this up. Or maybe the pillars was actually rather than just suppress it, was just a means of like containing it while they were experimenting on it, perhaps not actually meant to just contain it, but just as a safety measure, which didn't work when they did their stuff.
Okay. So we have a means for the ring or the artifact to basically exert the Snake King or the Serpent King's will. And that's why it will influence the armies or influence other people or corrupts the person that ultimately attunes to it.
Maybe there's like a mild, like easily resistible urge to attune to it, perhaps.
Well, that's just it. Attuning is always voluntary.
Right. It can't force you to tune to it. That's why there's an urge. It's like your character wants to attune to it, but it is easy to brush aside or something like that. That fits in with the whole, you hear the whispers even when holding it, even if you're not actively using it. But
well,
again, that can be up to it.
Yeah,
up to the DM or whatever.
Well, we can do a sound effects file for that and play that when a character wants to attune to it or refuses to attune to it. But basically, they have to know what they're getting from the ring.
Well, if they found this the chamber with the thing, it's actually specifically mentioned in the note that they call it a cursed ring. So that lets them know, oh, this ring is cursed, and so that would make them perhaps think twice about just putting it on willy nilly. And then we need to figure out like what happens if they actually put it on.
Well, one of the staples of cursed items in any system is, in order to remove it, you need counter curse. So once it's attuned and on, it's not coming off without a spell or something.
Right.
And at low levels, that's expensive.
That's might as well not be feasible.
Right, but since they've it's might not even be like the actual curse, but the whole thing that the entire time you're wearing it, even if it's not cursed, you're hearing the whispers urging you to do the Serpent King's will. Even if it's not directly cursed as in unremovable, the fact that you're gonna be listening to this, maybe making a will save every so often to when you come to a choice where Serpent King wants you to do one thing or you want to do another or something.
So the Serpent King directly talks through the ring.
maybe not directly, but with the whole whispers, probably encourage you to do the Serpent King's will with the whole corrupting influence.
Again, I feel like that's a lot at level 1. Um Also, I read cursed in this particular context the same way that I read lucky.
Oh no.
More like um it's just more like it's one of those things people just say without the context of what the thing actually is and what it can do. Like, people could think it's cursed because everybody who's come anywhere near this place has been brutally murdered. Like, it may not actually be cursed,
Yeah,
but the
that's
idea of, people meeting their end here has made people think it's cursed. So they
yeah,
just call it that.
yeah. That's what I'm getting is that just because he says it's cursed in the note doesn't mean it actually can't be removed without a remove curse spell. But you have the whispers of saying that like it gives you whispers if you're using it, or even holding it, at least in the original thing. Though that might be a bit much particularly for level 1.
God, and me and my brain is like, man, what if the PCs decide they want to keep this ring?
That's another valid point, is, betraying the person that hired them, which we've seen a lot of. We have seen a lot of. So what if the ring only functions in the tower, but they don't know that?
You know what? I do like that. Like, it has a connection to the place itself.
Or the Serpent King can't commune through it unless it's in the tower or something.
You know what?
Something maybe if they were to spend their entire lives studying it, they'd unlock more things since it is an artifact, but they'd basically have to stay in the tower to do it.
Because now that I think about it, one of the things that low-level PCs in Unterra might not immediately know is how ley lines work. It could be that there's a particular convergence over and around where this tower is, which is why the ring does what it does while it's in the tower. But taking it out of the tower kind of like throws everything off, and the circumstances are no longer viable for it to do what it was doing.
Okay, so certain conditions have to be met for the ring to do stuff.
That's probably why. You know what? That's another reason why there's probably all the experimentation in this place.
Oh, they didn't know how it worked. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. They know that if they leave the tower, the ring doesn't work right. So they start experimenting here, triggered some hidden property, and bad things happened.
Okay.
I mean, I know in several different things, granted, most of those were D&D editions, but like artifacts, you don't always know everything it does, and you can't even access everything it does in some cases until you've done more research. So we could just say that, like, in particular, once it leaves the tower, it's just a basic, basically counts as the 2 fundamental runes, as long as you're wearing it or something or other, and that's all it does. But if they were to spend time in the tower and experiment it like these guys do, they might unlock more stuff, but there's danger to that because Serpent King. But it's unlikely that the adventurers are going to do that, because they're going to want to either use the ring because, oh, hey, I get to have 2 free runes, basically. I mean, they won't be able to add property runes to their weapons in 2nd edition without actually putting the runes on. But for level 1 or potentially level 2 by the time they leave this place, or even level 3 by the time they leave, that's still both runes basically just for wearing a ring on any weapon they use. That is pretty
150
powerful.
gold. Yep. That's level 3 treasure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like just to put the 2 basic fundamental runes on one item, that's 100 gold pieces. 35 for the potency, and then 65 for the striking. So for it to be a single item that does it to any weapon, yeah, that is a couple of steps above, even if it's still just +1 each.
Yeah, this is too much depth for one item. This is like a campaign focused item. This is not a one adventure item. We need a one and done.
Right. That's why. Yeah, that's why we can say that they take it out of the tower. It's just a basic, just like counts as the 2 runes for items you wear, provide you attuned to it, but no other effect once you leave.
Okay. Lesson learned, Iron. Do not make the basis of the first adventure, like the set piece of the entire campaign.
Oh no, absolutely not. It's too easy for it to go off the rails.
Right. And that way we can have like the supposed artifact that they're finding, but it doesn't have artifact level power once they leave, because artifact level power is artifact level power for first level adventurers. They definitely, if it was artifact level power, they certainly want. I don't know of any adventurers who would, aside from the super goody ones, who would actually hand it back over to their employer.
Well, the theme of Persian mythology, from what I have read, is that temptation exists even for good people. So I would have to say that the corruption would affect them too.
Right. So, I mean, and even if the corruption is as basic as keep it instead of handing it over.
Okay.
Ooh, you know what? Maybe I should think about some sort of subsystem for a corruption level.
That is what I was thinking, yes.
Oh, yeah, like the cultist points that we have in the...
you have 3 cultist points in one session. They betrayed their employer again. Oh boy. So Iron.
How many did we get?
Yes.
3. You had 3.
Okay.
So Iron, you brought it up yourself, but this person did it too. But there's no shame in it. You've been so familiar with 5e for so long now that you have a bias.
Yes.
The bias is showing.
I need to break that habit so badly.
Well, we're all used to the system. We've all done it for at least a couple years now, and then we had the shock of, the 4th edition scare all over again, where Wizards tried to, basically put a luxury tax on D&D.
Right. And it doesn't help that the Pathfinder 2nd edition is quite different from any D&D. I mean, it's quite similar to, say, 3.5 and 1st edition Pathfinder, but still different enough mechanics that you can't just take anything from those previous editions and put it directly into 2nd edition without some changes.
Yes. That's exactly why we were going over this, and something with a small adventure first, because I think for next time we'll do something a little bit more complicated with something that's system agnostic. I don't want to say City of Cogs yet, because City of Cogs is a bit much.
I do like the idea of the corruption points. That could even in fact be system agnostic, because it's just something specific to this campaign setting. Your overall campaign setting is that if you do things or interact with items that have a corruption modifier, then they start building up over X amount of time, depending upon what kind of item, whatever they do. And once they reach a certain point, they basically, like with the cultist points, they become NPCs and you have to roll up a new party. But make it clear from the beginning that or at least once they first find it, it's like, hey, this is a mechanic and this is what's going to happen if you reach X amount. Because like when we first entered the temple, Brent was like, we've got a cultist system. If you reach, or actually maybe even before then, we have a system, it's cultist points. If you do cultist activities and reach 10, you become cultist and you roll up a new character.
What did they do as soon as they started the new campaign? I work for the cult. Come help me. I'll pay you. This is what we're doing.
Me and my character missed the part that they said right when we first left when we were first getting hired to go build the tower that he worked for the cult, if he said it then. He said it once we were already there, and it's like, well, it feels like, well, we
gotcha.
have to do something in order to actually, because we could still, from the tower, particularly its ruins, we couldn't see the temple, so we still needed his help to get into the temple itself.
Yeah,
which is the main reason why, like, my character's like, might as well we're here anyway, might as well go ahead and do this so we can get the rest of the way to the temple.
There it is, Kentaro. Thank you. There's the morality. There's the gray morality. That's something for the subsystem right there, Iron. I came this far. I might as well see it through. The ends justify the means.
I mean, because there's no guarantee, even though we didn't know that he could teleport at the time, there was no guarantee that if we attacked him right then there upon revealing that he was a cultist, that we'd be able to get to the temple,
right?
If he runs straight to the temple or whatnot.
He could not even get in the temple, Iron.
Yeah,
they had to let him in.
He was locked out of the temple. Granted, we didn't know that. He wasn't telling us, but there was no guarantee he'd run to the temple. And now that we know that he couldn't get in, he certainly wouldn't have, so we wouldn't have found the temple. We'd have to find another way in. And the quote-unquote good option in town, we'd already been told, no, I can't trust you yet. I can't trust you to not go in there.
Well, that she didn't say that. She said, I can't trust you to not be corrupted by the temple's influence, because others like you have been corrupted before. And it's happening. It's already, you're 3/10 of the way there. I'm not doing anything. The story writes itself. I just follow the Claires.
Yeah, I mean, 3 in 1 session. Wow. That's impressive.
So definitely a good idea came out of this. I agree with both of you on the corruption subsystem. That sounds like it would be fun, and it would showcase changes within a player. Now, not to put it in 5e terms, but there is a madness system in 5e with minor and major madnesses.
That could be something that you could look at to give an idea of, like, should it be sort of like the cultist points where it doesn't actually do anything at all until you reach the tipping point, or does it have minor, or does it have effects as you get up and closer to the tipping point?
I feel like it should. Maybe not at first, but I feel like players should probably start to notice subtle changes.
Like snakes growing out of their fucking back.
So let's say that if they hit 20, let's just as a random ballpark, just for theory crafting, 20 points, you lose control of the character. So maybe say at 5, 10, and 15 points, something happens. And of course, the closer you get up to 20, the more drastic the thing happens. So like a minor...
They start boiling the brains of their citizens to feed their snakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he went from 1 to 20 really quickly.
Am I the baddie? No, it is the heroes who are wrong. I think that is a good starting point for the first adventure that you should be considering. That is something to introduce the players to right away, because evil exists and it doesn't corrupt because it seeks you out. That's not the way evil works. You seek evil out. That's always the way it is.
So yeah, you first pick up the ring when in the temple. You get the whispers. What do you know that this is a bad thing? Using it is a bad thing.
Using it is a very good thing. You said so yourself. Potency rune and striking rune.
Yeah, that's the temptation. It does good things, but it also starts giving you corruption as long as you're using it.
Okay, so the corruption subsystem works off a given temptation. What is the temptation? And using it to benefit yourself gives you the corruption.
Right. So the temptation is to put on, get the runes for free, even if you can't then, apply potency runes to your weapons. But, basically 100 gold pieces worth of runes on any weapon you use without actually having to, get the runes and put them on. So there's a temptation. It's a pretty powerful if all you have is non-magical weapons.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, the temptation can grow with character level.
Oh,
that way you increasingly get tempted. It's just like, oh well, this isn't that powerful anymore. Then they have the tendency.
If you keep it, and maybe as you go in power at certain levels, it's its own power as it's feeding off of your own your own bad thoughts or whatever, or as the Serpent King gets closer and closer to whatever his cultists are doing, or as you get more quote unquote artifacts, maybe they bounce off of each other. And it's like, if you have another artifact, it goes from potency 2 and striking 1, and as it starts getting the effects of better runes.
Yeah.
So long as you have more of the other effects.
That could be the benefit of the cultists. They become the new Serpent King, and then the Serpent King has a medium that becomes the new avatar. Because we discussed that with whole, like, they have like representatives. This person who fulfills like some vessel of corruption or gets like an artifact to channel the will through, they actually get to be the puppet. They get to be the new king.
Yeah,
it is Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and it also adds in bits of it also adds in slightly, because like basically there's like, say there's a set. Let's put in points of like, so there's a certain amount of different artifacts. They are weak by themselves, but as you can put them as one more, as like even say spread among the party, even as more of them get closer together, they grow in power. So there's a temptation to use them because they get more powerful the more you find.
You read my mind, because as we were having this discussion, since at least about 15 minutes ago, I've been writing a list.
Yes, you should be.
Potential artifacts.
Work on the subsystem first.
I thought, what if somebody decided that they just wanted to bring all these together? Oh God, what if somebody hired them to gather all of them from level 1?
Yeah. Because they would be the most. They wouldn't be tempted as much as someone who's more powerful. Because the way that the temptation works is because the stronger you are, the more temptation. The way they're so weak that the temptation barely influences them.
Oh, this is so sinister. I love it.
So you're going to have the ring start as basically it counts as, say, just the +1 potency rune, not even the striking. But as it gets stronger, it starts gathering up more stuff and say... and then, of course, as they gather more items, like say, the more of these items you have on one person in particular, the stronger they get. So there's an idea. So there's even the temptation of, I'll take the item that my friend here is wearing, so that I will be more powerful. More temptation there.
The way you could have it with the corruption system is the same way it happens with like the Sith Lords, is that the physical characteristics change. It doesn't need to be frickin' snakes growing out of the back. It could be like subtle things that change physically about a person first.
Maybe their skin looks a bit more dry, a bit more like a bit more scaly, like at later levels. It doesn't actually provide, say, mechanical benefits. At first, anyway, it's just visual. But perhaps they become more and more snake-like as they get more and more corrupted until they're basically the avatar.
Writing that down.
All right, so this was actually very useful to go through this and actually get you thinking of it, because as we bring more system agnostic things into Pathfinder 2nd edition and we expose you more and more to what the system actually has to offer, we can try taking some of those ideas and making the corruption subsystem in Pathfinder 2nd edition, like I did with the cultist system.
Though one thing is pointed out in this module is that there's the possibility of while it's difficult, there's a possibility of destroying the ring. So you also have to put into question, what if the players decide to just figure out that these are corrupting items and decide to destroy them? What do they have to do to destroy them? How difficult is it? Is there any benefits to doing it aside from getting rid of a source of corruption? Or how does it affect the overall campaign if they try and either fail or succeed to destroy one of these quote unquote corrupting artifacts?
That is an interesting question.
With Persian mythology, the sacrifice is always giving up the temptation. There's never any benefit to it. That is why it is a sacrifice. To retain.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So basically, the benefit is there's one less corrupting artifact in the world, and that's it. You gave up an item of power, but there's one less source of corruption in the world. That's all the benefit.
Yeah, it's the way that the Persian mythos works is not the adventurer mindset. They're going to end up being snakes.
Yeah, probably.
Alrighty.
But that also then leads into the next group, if they keep in the same worlds. Hey, there was a group of adventurers going around, and then it suddenly vanished, and suddenly they're turning up alongside, trying to do things that are against the will of the people. What happened to them? Then you have the plot hook for the next group, the next party.
Oh God, is that why the former adventurer party is there in the freezer?
Well, that can easily be explained by they've been hired. The person who hired them is actually trying to work for the Serpent King, trying to become the next Avatar. So this group. He hired a group before these adventurers, sent them in. They didn't come back, and so this group he then hired. Didn't tell them he sent another group before. We could just do without the whole army thing since it's related to the Serpent King. And it's like, I need you to go in and get this thing. And it's like, I can't find anyone else to do it. Not being evil, he doesn't mention that there was another group. There's also would also put in when they find a group of adventurers, they go like, was he sent by them? Maybe there's a little thing on them that mentions that they were sent by this guy, which gives them a reason to, why did he not tell us about this other group he sent?
Classic Fiverr.
That way you can start putting in hints that the person who hired them might not be on the good side. Perhaps the person who hired them already has a piece or two of the artifacts of corruption, and that's why he's sending people out to get more. Is that way he can get stronger if they actually hand it over to him?
Well, see, that's the thing. My idea going in was that the party is hired by and working for an organization that does like a whole bunch of like archaeological related stuff. So it's not entirely unusual for them to be going after something like this. They may not necessarily even tell them that other people tried to do it first.
Right, and that gets that, and then, but it also means that it'd be a perfect place for a potential Serpent King cultist to be hiding amongst, sending out people to gather up Serpent King artifacts. See, unlike say other regular artifacts, they have a better idea where these artifacts are, and they particularly send adventurers for them.
Oh, absolutely. All right.
There's some pretty good ideas that came out of this. I like that. And this was just a little tiny $0 adventure. This is the kind of things that can happen when you try to convert into a system.
And then add it to a different, longer campaign.
Yep, this happened a lot with D&D 4th edition into D&D 5th edition. That was painstaking. That was hurtful.
Yeah. Ow. Yeah,
All right.
I actually had more fun creating characters than actually playing them in fourth edition because they were all basically cookie cutters. It was the different flavor of how they did it that was more or less. Sorry for interrupting you, Bramble.
No, you're not interrupting. I just wanted to say that was pretty good.
Yeah, I feel we've given Iron Bear a lot of ideas and things to refine.
Yes. Now the work begins.
I mean, the work never stopped.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. The work doesn't stop until the campaign is over. Maybe.
Emphasis on the maybe.
Yeah, because then it's like, okay, these things went wrong with the first playtest. Let's fix these, or at least refine them so that the next group that goes through won't run the same problems. Like with the Raging Elements that Bramble's running my group through, we find occasionally problems, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll fix that for the next group because we're playtesting it. Like we came across the map is too big.
That there were so many fundamental things with the map. I'm not even going to get into that right now. Alrighty, sir. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing, particularly about what you want to see from a starting adventure and whatnot, and what to introduce the players into?
God, not really. I'm kind of glad that going in, my issue was, man, how do I make a first level or low level adventure interesting? I think this did that and then some, and hopefully that kind of translates on the player side as well. I guess I'll find out, because I really do want to run this now.
I think the corruption subsystem will help.
Right, because that in particular, here's an artifact that's weak now, but there's downsides to using it. There's upsides to using it, because even if you don't immediately recognize what the downside is, there is a downside. And it's like, okay, so then players have to like weigh the pros versus cons. And then there's also the major plot code is, why does this thing have this particular downside? And then you can say, have them look out for more info, find out there's other things that do kind of similar have similar downsides, and then that brings them into the main the whole Serpent King plot point, which is behind the entire campaign.
I think they're going to notice when people's brains start getting boiled into stew.
That'd be probably around like the higher level points of the corruption points where they have to do that.
Alrighty, sir. Thank you very much for joining us again. Hopefully next time we can get Tony in on the action. But I think for next time, as we detail more and more of this map, let's try getting another adventure in here. I'm gonna stick to the budget of $0 again, because we made a lot of improvements here. Let me go back to what we had before, particularly here. This is what we had to work with. This is what we were given. And we basically drafted it and we turned it into something a bit more substantial, but still some work has to be done. Not only on the mechanical side like we did today, but also on the graphical side so we can showcase what's actually there. But still substantial changes.
Oh yeah, we definitely made lemonade with it.
And also we could try and figure out if we're doing a new adventure next time, we can try and figure out how to start linking them together to towards the whole serpent thing. Maybe touch more upon this corruption system, like how many levels do you want to it, how much was like, say, using one of these artifacts will get you towards that.
That's a good point. linking it together. I wasn't even thinking that. Yes, I have to make something that actually makes this into a chapter or makes it into a separate adventure. I will consider that.
Since you're saying that these first level posts will probably be sent out by an archaeological group, well, that leads you into the second. They're going for another relic in a different adventure, or perhaps clues towards another relic. That would easily lead into the second adventure that we'll be working on next week. So that gives us easy plot hooks if they decide to follow it. There's also the whole if they decide to follow it.
Yeah, and I toyed with the idea of like throwing in adventures that are not necessarily unrelated, but not like immediate go get this artifact and this, that, and the other. Kind of breaking it up a little bit in between.
Right. Some of them could be going to find regular mundane artifacts of ancient times, or even perhaps guarding an archaeological group that knows how to find those better, like maybe an a dig or somewhere where they're uncovering some ruins and your guys are there because there was bandits in the area or something like that.
The bandits could
it could
be corrupted.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Perhaps
that would showcase the first corruption.
Right, some weird bandits or monsters that were showing up, and then they show up with snake bits because they've gotten corrupted for one reason or another, and that would work. That could do that. You also need to think of if they're being hired to get this ring, what do they get when they hand it? If they hand it over to the or will the person who hired them will let them keep it so long as they get to study it for a time or something like that.
I feel like that wouldn't be agreeable, especially if someone's willing to pay to get it. There has to be some downside to keeping the ring, especially if adventurers are going to be hired like this.
Yeah, I guess one of them is that they won't be trusted to go pick up relics anymore, even if they're not kicked out of the archaeological. I don't know how to pronounce that thing.
Archaeological, yeah.
Archaeological.
Well,
if they're not kicked out of the group itself for re-engaging on the contract, as go get this item, bring it back to me for X amount of money.
So there are two ideas here. One, if a person is smart enough to know what it is that they're sending people after, I don't think that they have any qualms about disappearing them, and they would probably have the means to do so.
Oh.
Second thing, what? Go ahead.
No, I just said, oh.
Campaign ended after one adventure because you refused to hand over the artifact.
a bold move, but I respect it.
Second thing is, I had the idea from looking. Oh God, 5th edition again, but it's Cobalt Press, so it's fine. Cobalt Press has a stat block for a monster called a Packed Drake. If you sign a contract in a Packed Drake's presence, direct consequence to breaking that contract. A giant Packed Drake showing up and
like an inevitable.
I feel like So if the PCs know that at level 1, that hey, if we don't hand this ring over, we're gonna have a problem.
Now, of course, they still have the option of trying to steal it back from the person they handed it over to.
Oh, sure.
But that would also lead into more corruption because they've been tempted, they want it, they're going to more evil efforts to get it back.
But the question is, are they stealing it back because they want the ring, or are they stealing it back because they figured out what the big bad is trying to do with it?
They figure out that this guy is not someone who should have access to the ring. It's like, we got to steal it away from him in order to keep him from using it for wrong reasons or something.
Oh, Iron.
Yeah.
to tempt you even more, you should check out the current Humble Bundle.
Oh no.
Oh, yes.
What? Okay, let me.
Are you referring to Humble Choice or Humble the actual Humble Bundle?
Humble Bundle.
All right, I haven't looked at what the most recent
What
Humble
am
Bundle
I-
is. I just got the Humble Choice from last month. So let's see here. What's the bundle for this week?
Oh, it's a good one.
Ooh, what is in this?
So you've got Pathfinder with the virtual tabletop and the PDFs, and on the other side, you've got Kobold Press.
Oh, yeah, Pathfinder 20 days left. Ah,
Kobold
book
Press has a
bundle.
lot.
Wow, that's
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Founder. Let's see, the Foundry virtual tabletop adventure path for it, plus the book Secrets of Magic for Pathfinder. I'm guessing this is all second edition stuff,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the first edition. Then Abomination Vaults. Yeah, there's quite a lot in there.
Alrighty. So let's wrap things up so you can let Iron take a good look at all the wonderful things that await him.
Yeah.
Let's say our closing thoughts and who we are. Iron, you first.
all right. I am Iron Bear Jones. You can find me on all the socials in the little dealie in the description. On let's see, what's today?
Today is
Sometime
the
around the
2nd.
5th.
It's Groundhog's Day.
Yes, it is. Ugh. Sometime around the 5th, I will finally be launching my Patreon and probably
Oh.
talk more about that the next time. There's not really a whole lot to it, but you know, something to look forward to, I guess.
It's a lot of work, sir. I applaud you for doing all this.
Oh Jesus, it is. But
Yeah, I knew that creating campaigns was not easy because I'm aware that just playing through it, all the effort that had to go into it, even though if I don't know exactly like how much effort, just helping you guys out with some of these things, like wow, there's a lot more effort than I thought into it.
Imagine waking up on the weekend and then having all this prepped, all these 6 to 8 hours of prep for the adventure for one weekend, and you put it on the table and the children go like, we don't like this.
Or it's like you prepared in that direction. We're going the other direction.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, guess what? That dungeon is magically here now. Deal with it.
yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've been hearing in various like D&D stories is don't expect them to always have a backup plan because don't expect them to go the way you want them to go.
It's fine that the backup plan is the original plan. There's nothing that they have no idea that the dungeon you've prepared is going that way. It could be the way that they're going. It's keep things open and vague enough that they feel they have the illusion of choice when in fact you're doing the damn dungeon. You spent 6 hours getting it together and getting all the maps together. They're gonna have fun. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna
They're
be
gonna
fine.
have fun and they're gonna like it.
It's fine. They hate all the puzzles. It's fine. It's okay. I'm not bitter. Have a wonderful day, gentlemen.